Well, hello, our YouTube friends. We are so happy that you're here today. If you're here for the first time, my name is Jill, and this is Mama Judy. And today we are coming on because today is Mama Judy's 80th birthday.
Oh
And
my,
I I asked Mama Judy a few days ago, I said, what do you think about if we get on and do a video and talk about, I'm going to ask her some questions about things that, over the last 80 years, what's transpired with mostly about art, but she's going to give us some little nuggets of wisdom. So happy birthday, Mama Judy.
well, thank you. It's a number I look at and go, oh my gosh, I wonder who that is. Don't
Well, and
doesn't equate.
and you just look amazing. You're healthy. I'm just so grateful that you are in my life, and we've been in each other's life for over 30 years now, which
Yes.
was wonderful being my bonus mama. So many of you, we have a much larger community these days as well because Mama Judy has been publishing these wonderful how-to videos. So I'm sure you've seen some of these recently on her journal making and how she does that. So as always, if you ever have questions about the journals or you want to see how she has done a certain technique, put it in the comments, direct message Mama Judy on Instagram, whatever. But she loves doing these and we love sharing those with you. So,
Yes, and Jill, I just like to support that and say, I love the comments. I'm appreciative. And anybody, anytime you do anything, you have the tendency to assume that everybody knows what you're doing. So
yes.
there may be things that I do that people don't know about or understand. So I'm always glad for clarification or any type of comment or question.
Right. And I think too, the duo that we are, Mama Judy's been doing art for decades, and I'm a newer, to art in the last couple of years, more consistently doing art. And so a lot of times I will ask Mama Judy, like, "Oh, I don't even understand. I didn't even know what a signature was for the
That's
longest time," which if you don't know, it's when you put the journals together and stuff. But I was like, what is a signature? I don't even know what that means. And so there are no dumb questions. That's what I want to say
no,
too, for
no.
sure. Okay, so what we're going to do today is I'm going to ask Mama Judy some questions, and I came up with I think 6 questions that I thought would be interesting for me to hear the answers to, as well as anyone watching today. And so I wanted to just sort of look at your life. You're 80 years old and celebrating you, but also I'd like to ask you a few questions and just see what you have to say. Okay,
Okay.
so let's start off. Number one, my first question is: in one sentence, what
Uh-oh.
draws you to art, Mama Judy?
Wow. I did look at the questions, and that was the one that is the hardest for me to answer, not because I don't have an answer, but I only get one sentence. So I think for me personally, it was just a matter of letting my inner child play. That's what draws me to it.
Hmm. Okay. And that was great, keeping it to one sentence. And okay, let me just see if okay, so this kind of leads into our next question. So thank you for that
Okay.
answer, inner child. And also Mama Judy and I've done many podcast episodes also
Mm.
where we've talked about inner child and that kind of thing. And they're on this YouTube channel. If you're here, you can just kind of go look around. And we have had podcast episodes that we've talked about different things. If there's anything in particular that we talk about today that I think there might be a good episode, I'll put it in the description below. If you're interested, you can go listen to one of those. But Mama Judy, how has your creative process evolved over the decades from your early days when it was more, and I know it's still a hobby, but you now also sell stuff on Etsy. So you now are an artist that gets paid to do some of your work. But how has your creative process evolved over the decade?
That's a really interesting question. A lot of people know they want to be an artist from the time they can consciously talk. And yet, there are a lot of us also who are drawn to art, but never think of ourselves as an artist or that we might even be artistic. So, when I started out in the first grade drawing and writing stories and that kind of thing, I didn't think of myself as an artist. I didn't even really know what art was, really. I was just drawn to doing something, and that happened to be the expression at that time. So I think over the years, in the beginning, my artistic expression was more general.
Mm-hmm.
And at times I didn't even know it was an artistic expression. And let me give you an example of that. For years, I sewed, whether it was reupholstering, whether it was my clothes, my kids' clothes, doll clothes. It just was what I did. But it never occurred to me that that is a form of artistic expression.
Mm-hmm.
So then I moved on to some other form in a general way like that, that wasn't painting, it wasn't sculpture, it wasn't what most people define as art.
Mm-hmm.
And so eventually I began to recognize, and I think it just comes through experience and learning and realizing, oh, this is an artistic expression. I excuse me, I have artistic tendencies. And once you make that connection, then I think what I did is seek out mediums that I could express myself more. What should I say? More.
Authentically,
Yeah, that's a good word.
maybe?
More authentically. Years ago, 30 years ago, I walked into an art gallery and there was a necklace there. And I looked at it, I wound up buying it, and I bought it because I looked at it and said, I can do that. And
Wow.
that then for 15, 20 years, I did all kinds of jewelry. So I think sometimes we start out without realizing we are artistic, we are creative.
Mm-hmm.
And then the journey becomes identifying that, accepting that. And then once you accept it, because sometimes it's hard to say, I'm an artist, because we have this view that an artist goes, sells things in the gallery.
Right.
And then once you do that, you find yourself experimenting.
Mm-hmm.
And some medium will come along, like the jewelry did, and I was into it over my eyeballs. I mean, I still have a ton of jewelry supplies, but it ran its course.
Mm-hmm.
And then something else sparks your interest. That's been my journey. Like I said, there are people that when the first words they say out of their mouth are, I am an artist. I was not Picasso, who drew art above the wall on above his crib when he was 4 years old. If
Right.
I did that, I probably got in trouble.
Yeah. I'm curious when you talked about expressing yourself through the sewing,
Yes.
would you say, and I agree, sewing can be, it is a total art form, but would you say too, that was more like, is the word utilitarian at that point? Like, oh, I need to make clothes because I need to save a little money as a single mom, or, was it anything like that? Or were you really having fun doing it and using your flair and all that?
That's an excellent question. And the answer is it was for self expression
Okay.
because I wanted clothes that were different without
Ah,
even realizing it. And it took me a while to even realize this. It wasn't, I mean, saving money, you can when you make your own things. But it was personal expression. That's what I was aiming for without realizing that's what I was aiming for.
interesting. Oh, that's
Everything I did had my stamp on it.
mm-hmm. Okay, and then another follow-up question is, when you went in and saw that necklace, bought it, and thought, like, I can do something like this, and decided to go the jewelry route, had you been dabbling a little bit in jewelry, or were you just like, I can do
Yep,
something like that, and I want to, and then then you went and got the supplies and started doing that?
that's exactly what happened. No, I had not dabbled in anything like that. You know, there are people out there right now watching this YouTube or listening on the podcast that might be feeling some kind of an itch. That's
Mhm.
the only way I can explain it. They don't know what it is, but it's just a feeling they want to do something, and they're always drawn more towards something in the arts. It's that itch, that feeling that is your inner child asking for expression.
Mm.
And you may not even know it, but I'm using myself again as an example. I would go to art galleries, I would go to museums, and I would look at paintings, the old masters, and go, oh God, I could never do that. And
Mhm.
so everything I looked at came with, I could never do that, because I was looking at the things that people, that had studied for 40 years. But when I walked into that art gallery and saw this necklace, my inner child knew I can do that. The
Wow.
big step was that I gave her the opportunity,
Mm.
because there are people listening again that might look at something and go, well, I think I could do that, but they don't take action because they don't see themselves as an artist. And
Right.
so without realizing it, that got me over the hump of not seeing myself as creative.
Mm.
Because when I did something when I was younger, I just assumed everybody else could do it. I can do it. Why can't you do it? So
Mhm.
there was never anybody to define me and say, but not everybody can do that.
Right.
So that was part of the process, the journey.
Yeah. Wow. Okay, great. Love that. Okay, so today, what is your favorite medium and material to use?
Oh, darn, here we go again. I have to
And
come up with one
why?
answer. Okay, that is not something that I can answer. If you're looking for one material and one medium, and here's why.
Okay.
Right now, I absolutely love the paper and making the journals, but I'm also redoing, because I hadn't done it for about 7 years, stained glass. I
Mm.
have also gotten back into a new form of jewelry, which involves fabrics. So I don't think I can limit myself to one thing. I I have in the past, where I got so immersed in the jewelry or even in the journaling. But what I realize is, if I have 2 or 3 different mediums going, they all feed the other one. They keep
Mm.
me inspired. And
Ooh.
maybe that's a good point to make, Jill. I was feeling probably about 6, 7 months ago, just kind of uninspired with the journals, but I
Mhm.
wasn't willing to give them up, because I truly love making them. It
Mhm.
allows me to play and experiment. And I was a little bit afraid that maybe they had run their course, but yet I didn't feel like they had run their course.
Mhm.
And that's when I went into the garage, saw all my leftover stained glass, started doing that. Well, then that inspiration, you walk back into where the journal supplies are and you go, oh, I think I'll do this for an hour.
Ooh.
So I have to have, I've realized, 2 or 3 things going on at the same time, and they will change.
Right.
But paper, collage, inks, those kinds of things, I just love them.
Yes.
I
And
just,
can you see over my shoulder in that window?
oh, yeah.
That's one of your stained glass pieces.
Oh, yeah, my gosh, I'd forgotten. See, I'd already forgotten about it.
And that was
I'll
from
probably,
like 20 years ago or
I'll
something.
probably send you 10 more and you'll go, wait, I don't need this many.
Okay, wonderful. Well, and that's good to know. And I also want to say, like, if anybody's listening and thinking, I can barely, I think some people are afraid to start anywhere, you know? And so just the fact that Mama Judy does have a lot going on and she has fun things that she dabbles in and stuff. But even if you just do have one thing, Mama Judy was just giving me advice before we recorded this video. And I was showing something that I was working on last night and saying I was just doing mark making. And I said, I don't really like this page because it just doesn't look that pretty to me. But she's like, no, that's great. And she told me, even if you just sit down and do a few doodles or whatever, just do something to keep that, what did you say? To just keep that fan
Keep
going.
that creativity going.
Yes. Yeah.
To
So
feed
that's
it.
important.
It doesn't have to be what I have found from experience, and it took me a while to accept it, because you're always subconsciously looking to make that masterpiece.
Mhm. Mhm.
It doesn't have to be big and bold statement every single day. In fact, if you look at really, let's choose painting.
Mhm.
Painters go through tremendous process before they get to the end product. And
Mhm.
I'm following one woman that said she might paint over her painting 4 or 5 times before she gets what she wants.
Wow.
So everything that you do that has some creative feel to it is important. I've
Mhm.
learned that through my own process. And there will be times when you don't feel inspired to do anything. Just
Mhm.
go sit down, put a pen in your hand, and make marks like you did when you were in the first grade.
Yep. That's good. That's good. Okay, Mama Judy, do you
Yes.
have any artistic blunders that you're willing to share so others won't make the same mistake?
Boy, I got a whole room full of them. I think, Jill, my blunders are more psychological than on paper
Mm,
because anybody using art supplies will make pages that they're not happy with, or they had a vision it would be this way and it turned out this way.
mhm,
But I think the real blunders that have hindered my development as an artistic person
mhm.
has been the internal psychological ones, which are very common for all of us to put in front of us. For example, I'm not an artist. That internal voice has kept me from developing a stronger sense of artistic expression for several years. So that I would call a blunder.
Yeah.
Another thing I would call a blunder is expecting everything to turn out perfect. And you put these roadblocks in front of you without realizing it. And that inhibits you more than the piece of paper that the brown ink didn't do what it was supposed to do.
Right.
Those are just future collage papers. You rip them up and use them in your collages.
Yes.
So I would caution everybody to examine their internal blunders. And I use the word blunder because a blunder is just generally a mistake. It
Mhm,
is a mistake to limit yourself and say, I'm not an artist.
mhm.
I went into an art gallery about a year ago here locally. Beautiful stuff that was selling for hundreds of thousands of dollars. And the one of the artists was in there, and and Jack had said to him, "Oh, she's an artist." Well, you can imagine what 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 that felt like emotionally. I'm not an artist because I was comparing myself to what I see his work. And
Yes.
he gave me a wonderful explanation. And he said, if you pick up any kind of pen or paper or anything to express yourself, you are an artist. So here's a man who makes his living selling these things that sometimes takes him a year to complete. And
Wow.
he doesn't have an ego that says, well, of course you're not an artist because you don't make it at the level I do. He is reminding people if you have any kind of expression, you are an artist in your own right. Now,
Yes.
I will not be an artist on the level that he is,
Right.
but I am an artist.
Yes.
So those are the biggest blunders. They're not the ones. I think what I would tell people, the blunders with your materials, they're not blunders. Don't even look at them as blunders. Be like Benjamin Franklin, who always said, I found 1,000 ways not to make a light bulb.
Oh, yes. Yeah,
So
that's
I
so good.
found 1,000 ways not to make a donkey. You know, if my donkey doesn't come out looking like a donkey.
Well, and like you said too, if you're using paper or fabric or whatever, and you feel like you messed it up or you don't like it or whatever, Mama Judy just said, rip it up and then use it in a journal, like as a collage, part of a collage, or dip it in some tea stain or something and just use it like that, which that's fun because that is what is fun about collaging is being able to rip pieces from different things and to
Oh,
take something that
yes.
you didn't like before to make into something you do like is wonderful.
Every single time that any of us sits down with any kind of materials and takes these, let's just say you rip out of a magazine
Mhm.
and you have all these pieces of paper and you take it and compile it into something else that has never existed like that before, then you have created art.
Mhm.
Even
Absolutely.
this, even your doodling, your mark making, it did not exist in that form, in that way, until you did it.
Right.
So you've created, we can all look at our work and say, we have created
Yes.
one of a kind, unique
Yes.
pieces.
Yes.
Mm.
Mama Judy, it sounds like you're sitting in the middle of a bird shop.
Well, I love being outside when I can. And so I'm sitting out here, and here in the Southern California desert, it's springtime.
Oh,
And we
it's
all know everywhere the birds just love to express themselves.
I love it. It's almost as if you put them on cue. Ready, go.
We have even named our resident that is the loudest. We have named him Bing after Bing Crosby from the, 50, 60 years ago.
Yeah.
So, yes, you are getting serenaded by my birds.
Okay, so I have two more questions. The
Okay.
first one is, and I think why I came up with this question recently is because you had done a video on a journal that was
Uh-huh.
you were incorporating like a story behind it. So I said, what my question is, what inspires the themes in your mixed media journals, and how do you decide on the story each piece tells?
They decide. I don't decide.
Okay.
And what I mean by that, because I don't want people to think, oh, woo woo out there. But when you are working with a creative muse, you will often get these titles or these thoughts. And really, that is the internal creativity giving you direction.
Mm,
And so, what happens? Number one, I like mixed media because just that term is a broad term. I
mhm.
can do inks, I can do collage, I can do paints, I can experiment with everything on these pages and put them together into a journal or a book, if you want to call it that.
Mhm.
And what I have found is sometimes my mood will determine the direction. The I think the video you're talking about is the fabric video that I did.
Yes.
That particular one was driven by old family photographs.
Mhm.
And for some reason, I'm looking at these photographs of my mother, my grandparents, my great grandparents, and the thought came to me about how, as kids, you always would go up into the attic where the old photographs and the old family things were.
Yeah.
And that then started the theme for that fabric one. But
Mm.
that's a little bit unusual. Most of the time, I don't have a theme. I
Uh-huh.
just go play and I play on pages. And then when I look over and I've got, 50 pages on the floor, I think, oh, it's time to put them in a journal.
Right.
But Jill, the other thing at the end of that, when the journal is done, it will always present a phrase that then becomes its title.
Mhm.
So part of it, your theme can be driven by a prompt.
Mhm.
If I said to everybody, let's all make a journal around the Ukrainian sunflower, that
Mhm.
would be a prompt we could all do. And
Yes.
ancestors, I think, is one that's very common for people to work with, old photographs. So it's a mixed bag. Sometimes it's just sit down and play, sometimes it's something that inspires me.
And the titles, do they generally come up when you're done with the journal, or sometimes does it come up as you're putting it together when you come up with the title?
You know, that's interesting. And it's probably different for everybody. But for me, what I have found is once they're done, and I just kind of leave them on my desk and I wander by and look at them or something, within a couple of 3 days, usually some phrase will pop up out of nowhere for no reason.
That's so fun.
And, or somebody will say something and it'll go like the little light bulb. Bingo, that's its title. Um, it, it's a fascinating, magical process.
Yeah, that is
So
fun.
if I could give advice to anybody, any of that, appreciate the magic of it all.
Mm,
And when you hear those little voices inside of you, don't ignore them.
yes,
They
that
know
is,
more than you do.
yes. I love that. That's really good advice. Okay, and so that was actually you just gave a good piece of advice to us. Do not ignore that magic and listen to that when it comes to you. My last question for you is, what's the best piece of advice about doing art or being
Mhm.
artistic that you've ever heard or received yourself?
I think it was from Rick Rubin.
I was wondering if you were going to mention him. Okay.
And it is basically just be an artist. You are an artist. Just be that. Acknowledge it, take hold of it. If it feels uncomfortable, roll it around, go stand in front of a mirror until it feels comfortable.
Yeah.
If I had to give advice to any person out there in any form of artistic expression, I would say read his book.
What's the name of the book? I'm forgetting. Do you remember?
So am I.
Okay, Rick Rubin. I'm actually Googling it right now. Book. It's like it's called The Creative Act, a way of, hold on, I'm pulling it
Be
up. A way of being. It's an
that.
excellent book.
It is an excellent book, and that title itself.
Hmm.
I'm going to back up for just a minute and talk about creative expression beyond the more common ones that we're all familiar with. My sister in law has a very, very creative side, but it's in her decorating of her home. The way, and my daughter in law, Seda, as you know, her creative expression is in setting the table.
Hmm.
So when anybody is looking at themselves and saying, I'm not creative, I would recommend they look in their life at what they enjoy doing
Hmm.
and what brings them pleasure when they do it. If it brings you pleasure to set the table in a beautiful atmosphere, there's your creativity. In
Hmm.
fact, there are magazines, as we know, through Stampington and Company, not just Art Journaling Somerset Studio, but they have one called Mingle, which is all about setting an artistic table.
Oh,
So broaden your horizons when it comes to artistic expression. Look at your life. What is it that you really enjoy doing that has an artistic flair to it? That's your expression. That's your creativity.
yep. And have fun with it and allow
Yes.
yourself time in your life to do it. Make it a priority too. I think so many of us pay so much attention and give so much of our time to work or, different things like that. And then we just carve out these little slivers of time to do anything that's fun for us, which that's fine too, if you only have a sliver. But the fact that so many of us don't make it a priority when it can bring us so much joy in our lives.
Yes, because that is self-love. When you
Mm,
can carve out any time like that, whether it's 5 minutes or an hour, it doesn't make any difference. You're saying to yourself, I'm important.
yes, indeed. Indeed. Okay, so Mama Judy,
Yeah.
I'm so grateful for you. Happy 80th birthday.
Thank you.
And I would
I'm
love,
going to eat chocolate cake.
oh, good, good. I would love, do you have, what's your next how-to tutorial that you're working on? What do you think?
Ah,
Let people know what they can look forward to in the coming weeks, month, whatever.
okay. I have to tell people here on YouTube that part of the reason that I'm scurrying around looking for more is because of the response I've gotten. So I want to thank you all for that. But two thoughts that I'm working on right now is some more techniques that I have used on fabric, which
Mhm.
fits into the last video. That one I hope to have done, let's say within a couple of weeks, because I'm still working on some stuff. And then beyond that, I have another journal or book, whatever we want to label it, that I did that is a little bit different than the others that I do. And the reason I like to bring these forward is just to show the wide definition of what a journal can be made from and look like. So those are the two that I can think of right now.
Okay.
Always open for suggestions. And if it's something that that someone suggests and I think that I probably won't be able to do one on that, I will tell them. I won't keep them hanging, but if it's something that I can provide and share with people, I'm happy to.
Great. Well, good. I look forward to it too because you're inspiring me to do different things through these as well. So
I know I'm inspired. I'm going to go into my little art room and work.
good. Okay. Well, thank you for watching. We hope that you will leave a comment if you'd like, and we appreciate you joining us here. And we're looking forward to giving more how-to videos in the future. And Mama Judy, I will see you next month
Yes, I'm
in
looking forward.
person.
Yes.
All right. Bye. Love you.
Love you too.
Bye.